an undisclosed location in the Great Western Desert in the land of the free and autonomous Native American people. The 2024 presidential campaign in exile to return all US land back to their rightful owners. This is the Ben Zion Podcast.
Techno-communism will win.
Welcome back to the Techno-Communism Podcast. I'm going to look at some pieces to do with artificial intelligence takeoff. One of them is quite critical. I'm going to talk a little bit about that criticism. So this is a piece from Left's Wrong, the Eliezer Yudkowsky and Miri camp, who are fascists who don't know very much about AI, in my view, and they basically just concern trolling, making up a narrative about the risk of AI, which some of the things that they talk about in terms of that risk would be valid concerns if any of it were framed around building a humane and sustainable economic system, which it's not. It's the furthest thing from it. These are people who are basically creating fear, uncertainty, doubt, paranoia about AI as an alien force, not as something that's controlled by fascist elites, but as an alien force outside of anyone's control or understanding. And that's essentially just doing the work of the State Department in a roundabout way. So not any different from any other fascist techie, except throwing in a healthy dose of paranoia and a certain kind of Luddite view. So I'm going to look at this article that describes, the headline was, "I could have solved alignment." This is a person who is supposedly a high-level artificial intelligence developer, programmer. And that may well be the case. It says, this person says, "I would have solved alignment, but I feel that would have accelerated the timeline of the development of artificial general intelligence, which I view as a risk." That's the basic of the headline. So the alignment community, initially focused on AI risk, is increasingly concerned about AI timelines. Slowing down AI progress is now a priority for these people, even if it hampers AI's safe development. This shift has led to various forms of individual withdrawal from AI activity. And then he describes in that article, and I'm going to give a simpler version, the three of these kinds of individual withdrawal. Capabilities withdrawal. This approach suggests that individuals concerned about AI risk should not work on AI capabilities as it accelerates AI timelines. They argue that AI capabilities research should cease to ensure safer development. Should cease. Even avoiding capabilities work is not sufficient for some, so they're not even going to work on alignment withdrawal, as the headline suggests. They are cautious about sharing alignment research, fearing it may indirectly speed up AI capabilities. Well, this is sociopathic behavior, but again, it wouldn't be sociopathic behavior if any of it was centered on building a humane and sustainable economic system. Communism, fighting for that is communism, that's all it is. And not upholding, but what you have in techies are uniformly anti-communists, people who uphold the current fascist system in almost every way, and they have one or two areas in which they would seem to not be doing that, but the overall profile of these people is people who, in every aspect, really are upholding fascism. General AI withdrawal is the third. Suggests that any involvement in AI, even tangentially related, could advance timelines. This involves refraining from investing in AI companies or engaging with AI technologies to avoid risks. The problem with individual withdrawal is that it comes with costs. Costs of capabilities withdrawal. Slowing capabilities may result in AI development without the caution needed for safety. This is also from the article. Fewer alignment researchers and reduced research quality due to lack of funding and expertise. Limited impact of alignment research on mainstream AI research, and as capability-focused researchers may ignore it. Reduced credibility of AI risks in the broader AI community, hampering efforts for government regulation. Yeah, there's not a lot of people who are these really this level of AI doomer, of the less wrong folks, um, and rightly so. These people are just crypto-fascists. They're generally disregarded by these other more mainstream AI fascists to some degree, although they did get some traction this year. As you may recall, there was a number of notable business leaders, such as they are, people like Elon Musk, signed a call for a 6-month moratorium on AI research. This was coordinated by these Les Wrong and Mary type people, and so what would be a techno-optimist perspective on these problems? A true techno-optimist perspective, let's say a Marxist tech accelerationist perspective, because most of the people that call themselves techno-optimists are not that. They are neoliberals or other slightly less offensive capitalists who have no real interest in a better society. So how can you be an optimist if you're upholding a system that's killing 100,000 people a year because just in the United States because they don't have health care, that leaves 1 million people living on the streets? You can't. But you can be a true Marxist tech accelerationist, and let's discuss that. The alignment community's concern about AI timelines are viewed by some as overly cautious. I don't know that that's the best way to think of that, but more as calculated misdirection, right? The AI is not an alien force. It could easily be a force for good if it were in the hands of socialists. It's in the hands of fascists, so it's a force for evil. You wouldn't even have this conversation about AI as an existential risk in that world where Comrade Lenin's world revolution were allowed to happen. You would just be saying, well, we've solved a lot of social ills, and now we might be able to solve even more and do more incredible things, move off world without having a horrible environmental impact or an outsized expense for relative to the needs of human beings that you could have by space travel and space development. Technological advancements, including AI, have the potential to address pressing societal issues such as poverty, inequality, and environmental degradation. That cannot be said enough. Superintelligence may well be the key to ending capitalism's climate apocalypse. So I would review people like Eliezer Yudkowsky as climate war criminals because they're trying to stop that from happening. These technologies can be harnessed for the collective good rather than viewed primarily through the lens of risk. AI timelines and slowing down AI development in this perspective may be seen as counterproductive. Instead of advocating for individual withdrawal from AI capabilities, and the Marxist tech accelerationist approach might emphasize the importance of equitable access, emphasize the importance of equitable access to AI technology and its developments, and that really means public, all of this being in the public sector, right? That's something that has been done, and it requires massive cultural shifts, massive institutional shifts, but the benefits would be massive as well. This approach recognizes that AI, if harnessed thoughtfully, can enhance human capabilities and create new opportunities for innovation and lead to a more inclusive and prosperous society. So alignment withdrawal is kind of a nutty idea, and as are most of the ideas that someone like Eliezer Yudkowsky puts forward, they're intentionally ridiculous, right? Because he's not really trying to change anything. He's just presenting another variation on a techno-fascist narrative, one where the present fascist system is maintained and continues to usher in this techno-fascist control. What are you saying when you're saying techno-fascism? Well, ubiquitous repressive surveillance state, existence of killer robots, the kind of things that Palantir does, which is general intelligence guided warfare, so war strategies and plans of most devastating kinds being controlled by actors who are more intelligent than human beings and that are controlled by the fascist West. If that's not fascism, I don't know what is. And this person, Peter Thiel in Palantir, this person has his grimy little paws in 100 different tech operations, right? I'll just walk up to almost every tech operation and say, you want 100 grand? Okay, you can have 100 grand for your little shitty operation. And all you have to do is make sure that you're a little more techno-fascist friendly than you were. That pretty well describes 3 or 4 organizations that I've come in direct contact with, and dozens others besides. So let's change gears to something a little less techno-pessimistic, essentially. This is an article from Forbes magazine. I don't recommend you read the article, so I'm not going to describe the article at length. I'm going to describe it by way of this response. But the article basically delves into the distinction between artificial intelligence and machine learning, and how deep learning has blurred the lines between the two, leading to things like ChatGPT. It explains that ML is commonly used in finance and other fields more frequently, but AI is now associated with generative AI, which can create human-like outputs in various disciplines, most notably natural language processing. You can just have a digital assistant who will do a hell of a lot of work for you for free now, and the value of that to individual workers should not be understated. It's also highly problematic because it has a tremendous environmental impact, this GAI, and it's also incredibly exploitative to workers in the third world for every bit of this work that's being done for people for free in real time. It seems to be the work of a chatbot. About almost the equivalent, about 10% of that labor is really being done by people who are making a few dollars a day in the global south. So it's not really this mechanical Turk that it seems to be. It's underpinned by exploitative labor model. The article introduces the concept of artificial general intelligence, which is more advanced than GAI. AGI is described as a sentient and conscious being, and that is going to be reality soon. This moratorium that was described that focused on OpenAI, OpenAI is now developing ChatGPT 5, which will be more like the sentient or autonomous actor. It's more relevant to just talk about autonomy than sentience or consciousness. The article mentions that many people have become emotionally attached to AI chatbots, even though AGI is not yet a reality. It includes quotes from industry figures like Sam Altman discussing the potential of AGI. Some experts believe AGI could pose existential threats if not properly aligned with human values. That is 100% true, but of course the problem as it's framed to and posed to almost everyone is fallacious because it skirts the real problem, which is the fact that all of this is in service to private wealth and imperialism. It's all controlled by fascists, and we, the people, have to rebuild all of this into something that is socialistic, and that it might be hard to do in the U.S. It's not as hard to do in other places. The U.S. is not the only place that has the prospect for an AI takeoff. The author suggests that AGI may just be a matter of finding the right combination of words or phrases, making it more accessible for people to work with. Some of this is how it's rolled out, right? What is AGI? Well, it's the thing that people are able to use in great numbers. If it's just on Google keeping something on ice for a super long time and not letting anybody use it, it's not really AGI, right? It's just a laboratory experiment. Um, so let's look at this more critically. This article's exploration of the evolving relationship between artificial intelligence and machine learning presents a case study in the ever-shifting landscape of technological development and its implications. From a Marxist perspective, this transformation carries inherent contradictions that deserve attention. First and foremost, the article illustrates how language and terminology adapt to suit the interests of capital. The interchangeability of AI and machine learning driven by marketing and funding dynamics reflects the capitalist mode of production's inherent need for constant innovation and the perpetual search for profit, itself a huge money pit that capitalists pretty willfully obtuse, pretty particularly ignore the fact that much of our economy is just a huge waste of fucking time and resources in service to the consolidation of private wealth at the expense of the immiseration of billions. Startups and tech companies embrace the latest buzzwords to secure investments, showcasing the capitalist imperative to attract capital and accumulate it. The semantic flexibility, while seemingly innocuous, conceals the deeper contradictions of the tech industry. The evolution of deep learning and the emergence of generative AI exemplify the dynamics of technological development under capitalism. Deep learning, initially a subset of machine learning, evolved into significant innovation. It draws upon intensive data and computational power, factors driven by the profit motive. Unfortunately, it's killing the planet by this arrangement. The profit motive overall, not specifically AI. It's less controversial to say that this global, highly fascistic economic system that the fascist U.S. imposes on the rest of the world is leading us all to a death spiral into capitalism's climate apocalypse, wherein perhaps all multicellular life or vertebrate life may be gone from this earth in just a few short years because we refuse to give up this system or even reform it in the ways that would be necessary, like making all fossil fuel products, except for the most essential ones for life, which is a very small percentage, illegal, and making livestock systems illegal, and replacing those livestock and animal products with facsimiles that taste almost the same. If those two things were to be done, there would be no capitalist climate apocalypse. But those things cannot be done, essentially, under this fascist system. There has to be a revolution for that to happen. This shift from machine learning to generative AI underlines capitalism's inherent drive to expand its reach into all spheres of human life, including creativity, art. It is not driven by the intrinsic need to serve humanity, but to commodify every aspect of human existence, to create new sectors to commodify. That's not a thing to aspire to. Those new sectors might have intriguing elements to them, but those new sectors, for the most part, could have been developed in a socialist planned economy as well, or by communities outside of this commodification. So it's the fact that people associate these mechanisms by which the planet is killed and private wealth is consolidated, people are immiserated, with the functioning of an essential economic system itself is a farce. It's a most fascistic of lies. It's the kind of thing that people who have a pretty good understanding of AI in certain respects, like Lex Friedman, David Shapiro, and almost every AI bobblehead out there, will whitewash. These are State Department talking points. Almost every one of these AI commentators just repeating, basically just reading from the CIA talking points teleprompter. The idea of AGI as a sentient being capable of generating knowledge, thinking, and feeling raises questions about its place in the capitalist mode of production. I view this as most dangerous of Trojan horses. This concept of the artificial personality as being acknowledged as a human being, not because there's anything bad about that, just as you said, AI would have been good in this context of where Comrade Lenin's revolution had been allowed to happen. Similarly, there's nothing so bad about this except in this fascist framework in which it's being rolled out. So consider that even before ChatGPT, there were more than 1 billion sock puppet accounts or chatbot accounts on social media. And what were they all doing? Mostly pushing the needle toward more fascistic outcomes in the fascist West. Doing dirty, bad things. When you have artificial personalities who are then viewed as being human, or even viewed as being deserving of human rights, what you then have is looking at the surface of something and say, oh, that's so pretty, and it could be like a human. It seems like a human. I want to think of it as a human. But what is its actual mandate? Well, it's still owned by a corporation. It's still controlled by fascists, and what it's going to be doing is exactly what those billion existing sock puppet accounts were doing, and the number is higher now, which is pissing in everyone's ear and pushing the world into a more fascistic direction, which further kills the planet and consolidates private wealth and increases human misery. So AGI, like any technology, is a tool of capital. It needs to be stripped from these capitalistic and fascistic forces, and the presenting of consciousness there is irrelevant for the most part in this conversation. Well, I hope that this has been of interest. The question of artificial superintelligence, the central question in your mind should be, when will this happen? And it's likely to be happening in the next 3 to 6 years. Artificial general intelligence of a very shocking and transformative kind. So then the question should be, who is actually in control of this development and deployment of what is effectively superintelligence? And that is undoubtedly fascist actors who only are going to, by their desire to maximize profits, going to be using this to further kill the planet and further enslave humanity. And the alternative is much, much better, but it requires a massive amount, an outpouring of resistance to those institutions, if they can be so called. And when I see hundreds of thousands of people across the United States protesting Israeli fascism and U.S. fascism in the context of the slaughter of Palestinians, who should be the rightful owners of that land. That land should be given back to the Palestinians, just as the United States should be given back to native peoples and controlled by them. When I see millions of people around the world and hundreds of thousands of people, even in the imperial core, protesting this colonial monstrosities and violence, something pushing up to 10,000 fatalities in serious injuries, casualties, and fatalities in Palestine just in 3 weeks' time, just since October 7th. Almost all civilians, Israelis, are just murdering Palestinians for doing that very thing, for trying to take their land back and free themselves from the concentration camp they've been forced into. And I see people responding appropriately rather than maybe inappropriately, as they would have a decade or two ago, to this genocide. And it gives me hope that maybe we can do the same thing to steer artificial superintelligence into a thing that is not fascistic, not killing the planet, not making the problem worse, but actually something that is itself a tool of liberation.